Well, it's hard to know where to begin. In many ways, this is one of the best days for Bitcoin. In many ways, it's terrible. Obviously, I feel bad for all the people who lost money. It reminds me of what things were like in 2014. And there was an old Bitcoin Uncensored joke about having your Pokemon game reset. People used to lose coins all the time. In this case, I mean, NVK, not to make it too personal, but I can't remember the last time I saw him tell the truth about anything. And I was myself very surprised at the extent of the podcast industrial complex, like how many people were shilling ColdCard. I knew that there was some people liked this absurd idea for some reason, but I had no idea it was so many people. And so, obviously everyone wants to play the blame game and everyone wants to have like their pet issue be uh, the main thing that people talk about. It's impossible to ignore the fact that, okay, so if you don't know about the history of NVK and his weird drama with open source, I mean, I would only bring it up because it seems as though the very lines of code that he changed in order to basically steal from other people with impunity and then cry about the same thing being done to him, which is that we're all part of this open source common project. The very lines of code that he changed to justify his ridiculous and unethical and dishonest behavior, those are the ones that ended up screwing everyone. So in a way, it's almost like the most perfect thing you could imagine. It's like you have this vast network of people who just don't care at all about the common good. They don't care about open source. They don't care about integrity. They don't care about honesty. And they all associated with each other and they all got everyone to put money into this one thing, which is now crashing and burning. So it's hard not to just think of it as just the most perfect outcome possible. I realize it's going to make me sound very heartless to some people, but I mean, if you were using ColdCard, you got very bad advice from someone. NVK did things that would never even occur to me, like just baffling. They're lies of an absurd nature, and it's hard to wrap your head around that. I think also everyone wants to now bring up, oh, what about multisig? It's funny, this is partly Luke's fault as well, because multisig has a flaw where it's very likely to delete all of your coins permanently, because you need to not only back up your private key, which everyone is already used to, it's just the 12 words with the one thing, but you need to back up the pub key that you get from the other participants in the multisig. And a lot of people forget to do this. As a result, they delete their everyone's money is deleted, which is a huge flaw in multisig. And many people thought of the solution. Very many people thought, oh, we can just back it up. When you make a new multisig, you can back this information up like to an up return. But as soon as you do that, then you have the Luke disease and all of his nonsense about, whatever, raping the chain or whatever such nonsense. This was all like in 2014, like 10 years ago. So we've been placed on a path, a certain path of hating the user. And of course, the Bitcoin treasury companies, Michael Saylor saying Bitcoin's perfect, we don't need to change it, saying we should just have corporate Bitcoin. It's all connected. If we had more people doing self-custody, if we had millions and millions of people doing self-custody, it would be getting easier all the time. But instead, we've atrophied that, or we've outsourced it. And this is the result. The ossificationists also, they protested against soft forks. So we had neither opvault nor covenants, nor for that matter, user-friendly multisig. I said frequently, many, many times, and I wrote it in my covenant support rationale that we should do opvault, because you could look at Jameson Lopp's list of people who getting physically attacked, having their fingers cut off and stuff, people in the country of France, for example, getting their houses broken into and then, having their family held hostage. So we need opvault to address this. Why don't we have that? Well, it's partly You could partly blame Bitcoin Core. You could partly blame, you could blame Luke, but you could also blame everyone for just going along with it. Like in general, standards have fallen year after year, and we put up with more pretentious bullshit every year, and we just ignore basic things like the user friendliness, and instead we do this pretentious nonsense with the mempool, SegWit, and Taproot. Also, all this is designed to support Lightning, which is basically another failed idea, similar to the hardware wallet idea. I mean, we could go through why is the hardware wallet idea so bad, and why have I and many other people who don't even like me at all and hate me. I mean, Peter Todd and I have been saying the same thing about the hardware wallet for many years. It is just a regular wallet plus a bunch of disastrous stuff stapled to it. Um, yeah, people said no one's going to want to shuffle a deck of cards and type in some cards. No one wants to generate their own randomness. I said, well, the click button randomness, you click the button and it's a black box. You have no idea if that was random. In this case, it turned out not to be. We all have been putting up with this for a very long time. And we all say, oh, there's another day. We could just delay it. Just don't break Bitcoin, right? This is the lesson from Op Next. And this is what everyone always repeats. They say, oh, just don't break Bitcoin. We just make it just another day of kicking the can down the road. And now that debt accumulates over time into weird disasters like this. So I don't know what to say to people, really, because, okay, so as people probably know, in an effort to add additional competition to Bitcoin, uh, I'm championing a hard fork taking place August 23rd. There's another one taking place August 9th. I think I'm just going to make daily videos until then, every day. So I'll see you tomorrow. And I'm going to try, there's so much to talk about, it's hard to even pick anything for like a short video. But, we've already talked about maybe what you might call creative destruction, which is that we need all this stuff, all this nonsensical stuff that we've been doing to collapse and be destroyed. Which includes 110, and includes Luke's idea that putting files on the blockchain is bad. Because as we've just seen, those very files would have made it easier for people to use multisig. Multisig is something that only Bitcoin can do and fiat cannot do. If you can go down to the bank and put your wife's name on the account, or put someone else, your nephew's name or whatever, on the account, then you can both, either it's a one of two, either of you can spend. But only Bitcoin has this cool thing where you can do like any two of the three, and again with Op Vault, it has special powers that fiat currency really cannot do. And yet, why don't we have these powers? Well, it's partly because Bitcoin Core is lazy. It's partly because they try to defer. They say we don't want to do anything controversial. Absurd. It's preposterous. But also the miners, they could take, they could take a leadership role at any time and jump in and rescue us from this nonsensical ossification. And it just speaks to, how every little lie that we've told adds up, and it's death by 1,000 cuts. We decide not to be honest with ourselves about the flaws of Lightning. And then, of course, this idea builds up that Lightning is this great idea and that it's a sacred cow and it can't be criticized. And it's the same for Bitcoin Core, and it's the same with everything, really, that everyone has been talking about. The treasury companies, I don't even know. Last year, I wrote over a year ago, or maybe it's I think it's over a year ago, I wrote this article, the derangements of Bitcoin. So if you search truthcoin.info, derangements of Bitcoin, you'll find it. And you can read about all the lies we've been telling each other. Hardware wallets, I didn't even think made the list. But there has been a rampant and extremely concerning, rampant lack of honesty in the Bitcoin community that has touched just about everything. And it's very disturbing. And so there'll be these two forks, and one of them I think is a terrible idea. There's the August 9th 110 fork, and then one that is a good idea, the ecash.com fork. I'll talk more about what to do them, what you should do maybe tomorrow. For now, I want to wrap up by talking about expected value, because people say stuff like, well, that new fork probably won't work. They say, oh, it probably won't succeed, as if that makes any difference, because what if I made this is like basic stuff, but when you talk to Bitcoiners, you have to sometimes explain these basics. So it's like, if you roll a dice, let's say I give you a deal and I say, we're going to roll a dice. If you get a 4, I'll give you $10 million. But if it's anything else, anything other than a 4, then you have to pay me $5. That's in the same situation where it's like, well, it probably won't work out. But of course, the expected value, you have to multiply and do it out. And there's plenty of other scenarios that are similar. Like if you're single and you're at a bar and you could go up and talk to someone, that could be your future wife or whatever, even though it's unlikely each individual instance. When people mine for a Bitcoin block, each attempt is very, very astronomically unlikely to be a winning block, but eventually one of them is. The likelihood of success is only one small piece of the puzzle. And in the case of the eCash hard fork coming up this August, the potential is that it will not only, first of all, the potential is that it'll be really like a top 20 coin, and it'll be very useful, and that it'll serve as a demonstration of what Bitcoin could be. But then it's also completely possible that it would surpass Bitcoin and then even be the hyper Bitcoinization coin. Now, of course, that's probably not going to happen, but that is not relevant. It's all about expected value. So if we only attempt the things that are certain to succeed, we'll only ever try a very small percentage of the things that are worth doing. I mean, no one would ever mine for a Bitcoin block if that were the case. So people just don't really grasp, like, if you could look at the private trading of the fork in a few manners. So it's privately changing hands before it launches, and also there's like a giveaway thing that is like freely tradable already, which this kind of imply that they would have a market price of $200 per coin. I have absolutely no idea if that will pan out, but if so, that would make it like near Bitcoin Cash already. I have absolutely no idea if that will pan out, but these are the facts of the case, that there are some glimpses. And I would encourage anyone who wants to support like fork futures and other tradable claims in advance of the actual fork happening to do so. That would be great. Even if it's $200 per coin, that's free money for everyone. So before you had $0, now you're getting free money. And this is what we really need. It speaks to the idea that competition, and that there's now a platform for people who want an alternative to Bitcoin Core, a real alternative where there's actually stakes. That's what I think this is really about. So it's about, do you really want to trust this useless monopoly guild that's Bitcoin Core? And do you really want to trust this podcast circuit that's bought off so easily? And don't you want all of the innovation done by different coins? Now, obviously 99% of that innovation is trash and will not go anywhere. But, people can be very creative and very inventive. And don't you want to have the option to, this is something that everyone used to believe in Bitcoin. Every single person used to think, oh yeah, when there's better privacy technology, we'll just add it to Bitcoin. Oh, when there's better scalability, we'll add it to Bitcoin. And everyone seems to basically have lost their minds, because what I'm suggesting is that you take something for free that has enormous potential, and everyone is just focused on like how hard it is to compete with Bitcoin. I mean, first of all, it's getting easier every day. Second of all, though, that's not the point. I think Bitcoin has gone through a 10-year period of just wasted time. In many ways, today could be the reversal of that, finally, where we've been foolish for so long. Why would anyone associate with NVK? That's what I was blown away when I saw this supercut of all these people shilling ColdCard. Like, it's just baffling that anyone would want to have anything to do with. It's just so funny, like, So Again, I feel terrible for the people who lost money, but who's really to blame? I wouldn't blame these people who took advice from the podcasters, but I would blame the podcasters. I would blame the Bitcoin Core for not prioritizing the user experience. I would blame everyone who's just kind of shrugged and went along with treasury companies and other kinds of corporate Bitcoin. I would blame Luke for his ridiculous idea that we shouldn't use op return for things, which has now become like a whole mainstream 110 argument somehow. So everyone going along with that is also being foolish. I don't know. I don't know what to say, but I'll see you tomorrow.